Finishing the Donuts from Homer Price by Robert McCloskey. The window was full of donuts by now, so Homer and Mr. Gabby had to hustle around and start stacking them on plates and trays and lining them up on the counter. "Sure are a lot of donuts," said Homer. "You bet," said Mr. Gabby. "I lost count at 1,202, and that was quite a while back." People had begun to gather outside the lunchroom window, and someone was saying, "There are almost as many donuts as there are people in Centerburg, and I wonder how in tarnation Ulysses thinks he can sell all of them." Every once in a while, somebody would come inside and buy some, but while somebody bought 2 to eat and a dozen to take home, the machine made 3 dozen more. By the time Uncle Ulysses and the sheriff arrived and pushed through the crowd, the lunchroom was a calamity of donuts. Donuts on the window, donuts piled high on the shelves, donuts stacked on plates, donuts lined up 12 deep all along the counter, and donuts still rolling down the little chute just as regular as a clock can tick. "Hello, Sheriff. Hello, Uncle Ulysses. We're having a little trouble here," said Homer. "We'll all be dunked," said Uncle Ulysses. "Derned if you won't when Aggie gets home," said the sheriff. "Mighty fine donuts, though. What'll you do with them all, Ulysses?" Uncle Ulysses groaned and said, "What will Aggie say? We'll never sell 'em all." Then Mr. Gabby, who hadn't said anything for a long time, stopped piling donuts up and said, "What you need is an advertising man. You know what I mean? You got the donuts, you got to create a market. Understand? It's balancing the demand with the supply, that sort of thing." "Yep," said Homer, "Mr. Gabby's right. We have to enlarge our market. He's an advertising sandwich man, so we hire him. He can walk up and down in front of the theater and get the customers." "You're hired, Mr. Gabby," said Uncle Ulysses. Then everybody pitched in to paint the signs and get Mr. Gabby's sandwich between. They painted "Sale on Donuts" in big letters on the window, too. Meanwhile, the rings of batter kept right on dropping into the hot fat, an automatic gadget kept right on turning them over, and another automatic gadget kept right on giving them a little push. The donuts kept right on rolling down the little chute, just as regular as a clock can tick. "I certainly hope this advertising works," said Uncle Ulysses, wagging his head. "Aggie'll certainly throw a fit if it don't." The sheriff went outside to keep order because there was quite a crowd by now, all looking at the donuts and guessing how many thousands there were. Watching the new ones roll down the little chute, just as regular as the clock can tick, Homer and Uncle Ulysses kept stacking donuts. Once in a while, somebody bought a few, but not very often. Then Mr. Gabby came back and said, "Say, you know, there's not much use in me advertised at the theater. The show's all over, and besides, almost everybody in town is out front watching that machine make donuts." "Zeus!" said Uncle Ulysses. "We must get rid of these donuts before Aggie gets here." "Looks like you'll have to hire a truck to haul 'em away," said the sheriff, who had just come in. And then there was a noise of shoving out front, and the lady from the shiny black corridor chauffeur came pushing through the crowd into the lunchroom. "Oh, gracious," she gasped, ignoring the donuts. "I've lost my diamond bracelet, and I know I left it here on the counter," she said, pointing to a place where the donuts were piled in stacks of 2 dozen. "Yes, ma'am, I guess you forgot it when you helped make the batter," said Homer. Then they moved all the donuts around and looked for the diamond bracelet, but they couldn't find it anywhere. Meanwhile, the donuts kept rolling down the little chute just as regular as a clock can tick. After they had looked all around, the sheriff cast a suspicious eye on Mr. Gabby, but Homer said, "He's all right, Sheriff. He didn't take it. He's a friend of mine." But the lady said, "I'll offer a reward of $100 for that bracelet. It really must be found. It really must." "Now don't you worry, lady," said the sheriff. "I'll get your bracelet back." "Zeus, this is terrible," said Uncle Ulysses. "First, all of these donuts, and then on top of that, the loss of a diamond bracelet." Mr. Gabby tried to comfort him, and he said, "There's always a bright side. That machine'll probably run out of batter in an hour or 2. If Mr. Gabby hadn't been quick on his feet, Uncle Ulysses would have knocked him down, sure as fate. Then, while the lady wrung her hands and said, "We must find it, we must," Uncle Ulysses was moaning about what Aunt Agnes would say, and the sheriff was eyeing Mr. Gabby, Homer sat down and thought hard. Before 20 more donuts could roll down the little chute, he shouted, "Say, I know where the bracelet is. It was lying here on the counter and got mixed up in the batter by mistake. The bracelet is cooked inside one of these donuts." "Why, I really believe you are right," said the lady through her tears. "Isn't it amazing? Simply amazing." "I'll be darned," said the sheriff. "Oh," moaned Uncle Ulysses. "Now we have to break up all these donuts to find it? Think of the pieces. Think of the crumbs. Think of what Aggie will say." "Nope," said Homer. "We won't have to break them up. I've got a plan." So Homer and the advertising man took some cardboard and some paint and printed another sign. They put this sign in the window, and the sandwich man wore 2 more signs that said the same thing and walked around the crowd out front. "Fresh donuts, 2 for 5 cents, while they last. $100 prize for finding a bracelet inside a donut. P.S. You have to give the bracelet back." Then the donuts began to sell. Everybody wanted to buy donuts. Dozens of donuts. And that's not all. Everybody bought coffee to dunk the donuts in, too. Those that didn't buy coffee bought milk or soda. It kept Homer and the lady and the chauffeur and Uncle Ulysses and the sheriff busy waiting on the people who wanted to buy donuts. When all but the last couple of 100 donuts had been sold, Rupert Black shouted, "I got it!" And sure enough, there was the diamond bracelet inside of his donut. Then Rupert went home with $100, the citizens of Centerburg went home full of donuts, and the lady and her chauffeur drove off with the diamond bracelet. And Homer went home with his mother when she stopped by with Aunt Aggie. As Homer went out the door, he heard Mr. Gabby say, "Neatest trick of merchandising I ever seen." And Aunt Aggie was looking skeptical while Uncle Ulysses was saying, "The rings of batter kept right on dropping into the hot fat, and the automatic gadget kept right on turning them over, and the other automatic gadget kept right on giving them a little push, and the donuts kept right on rolling down the little chute just as regular as a clock can tick. They kept right on a-comin', and a-comin', and a-comin'." And that is the end of the story of the donuts, which I probably first heard about 25 years ago. I hope you enjoyed this Robert McCloskey tribute this evening. Please comment if you enjoyed the video.